Hello everyone. So welcome to the next session in our Modern Indian History course. And today we'll talk about going forward in the chronology. We'll talk about Simon Commission and the road to the Purna Swaraj. Road to the Purna Swaraj, we don't reach to the Purna Swaraj in this session. We'll reach to the Purna Swaraj resolution in the next session. But we'll go through very important development, very important constitutional development. So before we get down to it, first we discuss the summary. Before that, let's recap what we have done. So in the previous few sessions, we talked about Gandhi's journey first in Africa, then in India, we talked about Champaran, Ahmedabad, Kheda. Then he came into the mainstream political movement, and then we talked about Gandhi getting into the mainstream political movement. When we talked about that what was going on in the mainstream, first Swadeshi movement, then Surat is split, the Congress divided into two parts, then we have the political vacuum, then we have the demand of the Home Rule League or the Home Rule League movement, and we are here at this juncture. Then what was then Montagu's statement has come. Again, the vacillation by the leadership, and then as a part, this is a carrot. Then what is coming? That is stick is coming in the form of the Rowlatt Act. Now Gandhi enters into this mainstream with the Rowlatt Act, and that is Rowlatt Satyagraha will be done. The violence will break out, and what will happen with the violence? The Jallianwala Bagh massacre will happen, and this is where we are. Then after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, what will happen? The Congress is waiting, India is waiting, and the context of the Khilafat comes in, because now we are at the end of the World War I. That gives the context to the non-cooperation and the Khilafat movement. Then non-cooperation, the Khilafat movement launches. Gandhi threatens to go for the civil disobedience. Then Chauri Chaura happens. Sorry. Sorry. Then Chauri Chaura incident happens. Then what happens? Then again, Gandhiji decided to take the movement, do not want to take the movement further. And then there is again a political vacuum. Parallelly, what is going on? Parallelly, the revolutionary activities are going on, because they have been excited by the non-cooperation in the Khilafah, and they are saying, what is this happening? Then some satyagraha we have seen. Now, again, there is a political lull that is there. What will happen? The future course of action, we don't know what to do. Now, what will be the scenario now? Now comes the very important thing, that is the Simon Commission comes in India. Simon Commission comes in India, and the Simon Commission comes in India and increases or breaks the lull of the Indian national movement which was there. Simon Commission comes with Simon Commission was the basically provision that was set up in the Government of India Act of 1919, that after 10 years we will bring one commission to look at the performance of our act. Two cases were there. Simon Commission was hastened. It was brought in 1927 itself. Why it was brought, we'll see why it was brought very early. Then the Simon Commission it was a all white commission. There was no Indian involved in the Simon Commission. Even in the Hunter Committee, there were Indians. But in the Simon Commission, there were no Indians. And the Simon Commission is going to discuss the future course of constitutional development in India. So now the people will protest tooth and nail against this Simon Commission. People will say, no, this is Simon, go back, Simon, go back. Now the Secretary of State is watching from Britain. What is this happening? Why this so much protest? According to him, these Indians, the Indians are protesting. These Indians, you are not capable of forming your constitution. He said, okay, go ahead and form your constitution. He proposes a challenge to the Indian leadership, that go ahead and create your own constitution. Okay. Constitution banao. Now the Indians come together. Okay, fine. We will frame our own constitution. Now comes that, okay, what should be the constitution of India? What should Indian governance look like? What are the questions that they'll be discussing? Ki bhai, Should the government be unitary? आपने polity में पढ़ा होगा, you must have read. Or the government should be federal. Whether the center should be strong or whether the provinces should be strong. These questions. Then what should be our constitution? Is it going to be a secular constitution? Are we going to provide separate electorates? Because in the Lucknow Pact, we have promised separate electorates, or they are going to be joint electorates. Joint electorates mean just like the election happened now. So this was a question. Should we create more provinces? How much reservation we are supposed to provide to the minority? So these are the questions and other questions on which the Indians have to form their consensus. And this is what we'll read. Now, obviously, the opposing someone is easy. Opposing someone's idea is easy, but creating your own idea is very tough. And we will see the attempts being made with the Nehru report. Motilal Nehru report. When the Motilal Nehru report will come, obviously, a lot of sections will not be happy. You cannot satisfy each and everyone. Hindu Mahasabha and the Hindu communal element will say, why are you giving concessions to Muslims? The Muslims will say, we are not getting enough what we have been promised in Lucknow Pact and earlier. We are not getting enough. So obviously, Lucknow report, which tries to find the middle ground between both of them, cannot satisfy both of them. Communists don't like it, and both the side of communists, whether it's a Muslim communist or Hindu communist, both don't like it. And this is why finally the Nehru report will be an important constitutional development, because it is the first time Indians were trying to frame their own constitution, but it could not achieve much. This is today's session summary. Okay, let us very quickly discuss. Now we have discussed in the Government of India Act of 1919 that there was a provision of the, you can see after 10 years there will be a statutory commission we will send, right? So in 2019 they are supposed to send it, but they have sent it in 2017. What were the reasons? The reasons were this. First of all, first reason was that after 1919 a lot of commissions and committees have been set up, and the working of the 1919, what is the working of the government is being run after by the 1919 Act, Government of India Act, but that is not satisfactory. A lot of acts, commissions have come. For example, Lee Commission has come that British Raj is failed to recruit enough British officer. The Moodyman Commission will say that diarchy which is being introduced at the which level? Provincial level. It is not working. There's a deadlock. Lithgow Commission will say that Indian agriculture is in crisis. What you people are doing? So the British thought that, okay, we have to rehaul this whole 1919 Act, and hence we need to set up these statutory commissions so as to recommend us that what should be the future course of the action. First thing is that. So it was a genuine concern that this was happening. So let us first discuss. The Government of India Act had a provision that would appoint 10 years from the date of study or to progress the governance scheme and suggest a new step. Okay. An all-white 7-member Indian Statutory Commission known as the Simon Commission on the chairman Sir John Simon was set up by the British government under the Stanley Baldwin's prime ministership on 1927. Okay. Now, one more important thing was that why it was early. First thing we have discussed that it has to be sent. Why it was to be sent early? Because there was an election to be held in 2019. So the government which was in the power in 1927 thought, if after the election we are not able to win, we should have a very favorable government in India. We should have a favorable constitution in India. So they thought that we'll set up this commission now and we'll accept the recommendations and we'll get it done. Because they believe that after 1920 election, the Labour Party will win, and the Labour Party, we have already discussed, is very sympathetic to Indian cause. Okay. So this was the challenge which they thought. So although constitutional reform were due in 1929, the conservative government then in the power in the Britain feared the defeat by the Labour Party. And they did not want to leave the question of the future Britain's most prized colony into the irresponsible Labour hands. Because the conservative believes that if the Labour gets the hold of the India, then they will ruin it. They will give them so much freedom and everything will be ruined. And that led to the appointment of the Simon Commission, early appointment of the Simon Commission. right? So British government thought necessary to go through the working of 1999. The Conservative Secretary of State, Lord Birkenhead, who had constantly talked of the inability of the Indians to formulate the concrete scheme of the constitutional reform, was responsible for the Simon Commission. So Birkenhead, we have discussed. So Birkenhead, because it was a conservative government, their Secretary of State or the foreign minister will be also a conservative. So he thought that Indians do not have the proper education or proper aptitude or proper skills to form their own constitution. And to Indians, it was very derogatory, isn't it? Hence, the Indian response was ought to be very, very sharp. What angered Indians the most, that what you are challenging, you are directly attacking on the dignity of the Indians. It is the against the basic notion behind the exclusion that foreigners would discuss and decide about India's fitness for the self-government. This is ridiculous. The notion was that the violation of the principle of the self-determination and the deliberate insult to the self-pride of the self-respect of the Indians. It is a deliberate insult of the self-respect of the Indians. This should not be done. Okay. Then obviously the Congress session will come. And the Congress people will say, okay, we will, Madras session of the Congress will happen in December 1927. They will say, we will fight the Simon Commission at every stage and in every form. Okay. So this was your Indian response to the Congress response to the Simon Commission. What about the other groups? What they thought? So a lot of majority have opposed the Simon Commission. For example, the liberals of the Hindu Mahasabha or the Jinnah faction, majority faction of the Muslim League under Jinnah, they all boycotted the Simon Commission. They said, no, this is wrong. But the Muslim League had two sessions. Muslim League thought that with Simon Commission, we is a faction of the Muslim League, a part of the Muslim League, we can get some concession with the Simon Commission. So one under Jinnah was there, and then one was the under Muhammad Shafi, who supported the government. Okay, say okay, sir, बहुत बढ़िया, very good that you have sent this Simon Commission. Other parties were also there. For example, Unionist in Punjab and the Justice Party in the South decided not to boycott the commission. So there were not a consensus or a uniform response to the Simon Commission. Remember that. Majority was there who opposed it. Congress, tooth and nail, liberals of the Muslim Hindu Mahasabha and the section of the Muslim League led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. In the Muslim League, minority led by Muhammad Shafi was there who were opposing the Simon, who were proposed or who were in the hand and gloves with the government. Similarly, Unionist and the Justice Party decided not to boycott the Simon Commission. Then the commission finally landed in the Bombay in February 3, 1928. So all these protests and everything was there before the coming in of this in India. A countrywide Hartal was being organized. The slogan, very famous slogan, Simon go back, very famous slogan. A significant feature of this upsurge was the new generation of the youth who got the first taste of the political action. They played the most active part. Nehru and Bose emerged as the leader of this new phase of the new wave of the students and the youth. Right? It provided a fertile ground for the germination and the spread of the new radical ideas of socialism, because at that time left was also rising. Because your Russian Revolution has taken place. In India also communist movement and communist parties are coming being. The issues of the peasants and the farmers is getting traction. At the same time, imagine parallelly what is going on. Parallelly, HRA has been not trying to become the SHRA. So you can see emergence of the groups such as Punjab Now Bharat Sabha formed in 1926, workers and peasant parties, WPP, Hindustani Seva Dal being created. Police obviously came down heavy on the demonstrator. There were lathi charge. Nehru and GB Pant were beaten up in Lucknow, and Lala Lajpat Rai. Saunders, remember Saunders murder? Lala Lajpat Rai was beaten so much that he died in 1928. And then Bhagat Singh did the murder of the Saunders. Okay, so Lala Lajpat Rai died in 1928. Now, the impact of the Simon Commission on India. Simon Commission was, you can say, a very polarizing event, as we have discussed. It from sleep, a lot of leaders have woken up. So, twofold impact can be seen of the Simon. First, it provided a stimulus to the radical forces demanding not just complete independence but major socio-economic reforms on the socialist line. When the Simon Commission was announced, the Congress, which did not have an active program, got an issue on which it could once again force the mass action. Especially doing the constructive work and all these things are fine, but they're not were or not on the national scene with an active agenda. No, Congress. Hence, they got this active agenda on which they can rely on, and again form the people, or people can come together and oppose the British India tooth and nail. Challenge of the Lord Birkenhead to the Indian politicians to produce an agreed constitution was accepted by various political sections, and thus prospects of Indian unity seems bright at that point of time. It looked like, because majority of the sections seems to be on the part, you can say, a part of Muslim League, despite having a lot of communal riots or communal groups being propped up, Hindu Mahasabha, Muslim League, and all this. But still, it was a unifying moment. Then the report of the Simon Commission came later on, but at that time, after 2 years, became very much redundant because the lot of protest was there on the Simon. But from exam perspective, very small points that you need to remember. A 2-volume book was being released or published. Just like any commission comes up with this recommendation, they also come up with recommendation. Abolition of diarchy in the province, establishment of the representative government in the province, which should be given the autonomy. So they talked about the autonomy to the provincial governments. Governors should have the discretionary power in relation to the internal security and administration power to protect the different communities. Some more recommendations. Number of the members of the provincial legislative councils increase. Report rejected the parliamentary responsibility at the center. So this is a very important idea. What does it mean? Very easy. That the Governor General and the Viceroy who is there, he is not, the Viceroy is not accountable to the legislature. So the executive is not accountable to the legislature. So that is known as the responsible government. The Governor General to have the complete power to appoint the members of its cabinet. Okay. The Government of India would complete control over the High Court and some other points. Separate communal electorate to be retained and extended to other electorate if until the tension between Muslim and Hindu died down. No universal franchisee accepted the idea of the federalism, but not in the near future. Consultative Council of the Greater India should be established, which should include the representative of British province as the princely states. ठीक है ये, this is important. Then Northwest Frontier Province and Baluchistan should get local legislature. We'll see the locations of these. They should have right to be presented at the center. Sindh should be separated from Bombay. We'll see that again. Burma should be separated from India. It should not. It's a natural part of the Indian subcontinent. Indian army should be Indiaized through the British force must be retained. So these are the some recommendations of the Simon Commission. इसमें याद क्या रखना है आपको? Just because they are not relevant, they won't ask such questions. But there are a few important things. First of all, it recommended responsible government at the center. No. It recommended the provincial autonomy. Yes. It recommended the communal electorate to be retained or separate communal electorate to be retained. Yes. Tick. Consultative Council of Greater India with the both princely states and the British provinces both. Yes. And a lot of provision you will see in the Government of India Act, which will study after 3 to 4 sessions. When finally the Government of India Act comes in, it will contain a lot of provisions. You can see a lot of provisions that is coming from the Simon Commission apart from the other sources. So Simon Commission report will help in the framing of the Government of India Act in 1935, which will be an improvement over the 1919 Act, because we have discussed why the Simon Commission has come to sort out the problems which were there in the 1919 Act. Chalo. Now we are here when the Birkenhead has challenged the Indians that go ahead and frame your own constitution. Go ahead and frame your own constitution. So Delhi proposal has come in 1927. This will be a few demand by the Muslim League. Then all India Party conference will happen. Nehru report will come finally. Then from Nehru report, Jinnah will raise some amendments. Ki bhai, at least amend few things. These are the points you are saying. Just add my points. Do these 3 amendments. So Jinnah ye bolenge. Now when his amendments will not be signed, Jinnah will raise his own 14 points. And when his 14 point he will raise, and that will lay out the roadmap for the partition. From that moment, there will be no point of coming back of Jinnah. So very quickly again, Birkan had challenged Indians. Indian went ahead. Muslim League decided, okay, we have these 3 to 4 provisions. Please see these provisions. Nehru report will consider it provision. Finally, after mulling over everything, Nehru report will come with a lot of recommendations, a lot of constitutional scheme. Then Jinnah will say, okay, please do these 3 amendments. No amendments cannot be agreed to. Then Jinnah will come up with 14 separate points. This is the chronology of event that we are going to discuss. Now let us summarize here again. So Government of India Act has said renewing that is Simon Commission. An opposition Simon Commission has come. Then Birkan had challenged Secretary of State from 1924 to 28. Then here you have no political activity, pro changer, no changer, we have discussed. Then this is there. And we will see in the Nehru report, there will be a reversal from the Lucknow Pact. Lucknow Pact, what they talked about? In the Lucknow Pact, they talked about that separate electorate principle we will elect. No issue. Both Muslim League and the Congress. But in the Nehru report later on, we'll see, they will say, no, we'll go for the joint electorate, not the separate electorate. Something about the Motilal Nehru. He was the founder of the Nehru Gandhi family, served as Congress president twice in 1928, 29, 19, 1920. Only leader who lent support to non-cooperation at the special session at the Calcutta in the September 20. Important thing. Wrote Nehru report, first constitution written only by Indians, which conceived the dominion status for India. They still are not demanding the independent status. So important thing. They are demanding what in the Nehru report? Dominion status, not the Indian status or independent status. Qualified at the bar at the law from the University of Cambridge. Achha, in so many points we're going to read today, a lot of things to be remembered. What are the point of contentions where the Muslim League and the Congress are at the odds? The first issue is of electorates. How the elections are going to happen, whether it's going to be a separate electorate or whether it's going to be a joint electorate. What is separate electorate? Again, I've explained to you earlier that, for example, there is a place where there is a separate electorate. So the Muslim candidate will be elected, and Muslim candidate there is the Muslim seat and there is a joint seat. The Muslims of the area will vote this person. Only the Muslims will vote and the Muslims will stand. So let's say 3 Muslims are standing and the Muslims will vote to select a person from these 3 Muslims. So it is a Muslim only people. Okay? So this is known as the separate electorate. That's all. The next point of contention is, now the Muslims in the whole India, the Muslims are in the majority in Bengal and in Punjab. Right? So they will demand that in Bengal, understand, in the Muslim League's demand will be that even in the Punjab and the Bengal, even if they are in majority, we should be given seats in proportion to our population. Understand this. They are having, let us assume, 80% of the population here. So they are saying that we should get 80% of the seats. But the Congress will say, okay, fine, we will give you reservation. So they are demanding the reservation. Congress is saying that we will give you reservation at the minority, wherever minority. Why you need reservation when you are in majority? So we will not give you reservation here. So this is again a point of contention. Very important. And the most important point of contention is also whether the constitution should be unitary or a federal. Means whether the constitution, who should have the more power? Center should have more power or the state should have more power? Simpler idea. Now think yourself, imagine karo, what will the Muslim League will demand? Think. The Muslim League will demand weak state or strong state? The Muslim League will demand the strong state. Why? Because they, as we have discussed, only few states, they are there, Punjab, and then later on they'll demand Baluchistan and Northwest Frontier Province. They are saying that these are the states, and even if we don't get the autonomy or the power in these states, then we are reduced. If you give every power to center, अब सेंटर में किसकी गवर्नमेंट बनेगी? ऑब्वियसली हिंदूज की बनेगी, बिकॉज हिंदूज आर मेजॉरिटी इन इंडिया. If you give more power to the center, who will get ultimately all the power? The Hindus. See, from the perspective of the Muslim League. Hence, they will demand what? That we need to frame a constitution under which we can have the a lot of power, residuary power to the provinces should be given, or the provinces needs to be empowered. So these are basically the points of contention. Okay? Now let us discuss one by one. First comes the Delhi proposal. So Delhi proposal, Muslim League comes together. They met earlier in December 1927. A large number of Muslim leaders had met in Delhi at the Muslim League session and evolved a 4 proposal for their demand to be incorporated into the draft constitution. Okay? So they will have this 4 proposals. These are known as the Delhi proposal. Let us see 4 proposal. And very interestingly, now they are demanding the joint electorates. It is the December 1927. First step. They are saying that, okay, fine, we will take up the joint electorate in the place of the separate electorate with reserved seat for the Muslims first. Then, there is one more point of contention. Let us see here. One more point of contention is there that the Muslim League is saying that at the center, at least 1/3 of the members should be Muslims. Even if their population in the whole India is 15%, but they require 33% reservation in the seats. Later on, one more demand will be there that no resolution will take place unless until minimum number of the communal people or the Muslims or the other religion do not approve of it. Okay. So these are the Delhi proposal. Let us see Delhi proposal one by one. So joint electorate in the place of the separate electorate. 1/3 representation to Muslims in the Central Legislative Assembly. Representation to the Muslims in Punjab and Bengal according to their population. So Punjab and in Bengal, they should get reservation in accordance with their population. Formation of the 3 Muslim majority province, that is Sindh, Baluchistan and the Northwest Frontier Province. Okay? So these are the 4 demand or Delhi proposal. अब देखो जल्दी जल्दी देख लेते हैं. Now Sindh is here, right? You see in the Pakistan में Sindh यहाँ है. Sindh is here, and Sindh is in the United India. It was Sindh here. It was earlier part of the Bombay Presidency. So the demand was to separate Sindh from the Bombay Presidency, and everyone agreed to it. In fact, British agreed to it. Simon Commission said the same thing. Muslim League said the same thing. Congress also said the same thing. So no issues there. Then there was a demand that Baluchistan should be given a separate province, and this NWFP should be created as a separate province. So there was a demand to create these 2 as separate province, and all of them agreed to. In fact, Simon Commission also talked about that they should have their own legislature, some autonomy needs to be given. Congress in the Nehru report will say, okay, fine, and the Muslim League will also say this is fine. Just to discuss the idea. Chalo, very quickly. So Birkenhead challenge say an all-party conference met in February 1928. They appointed a subcommittee under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru to draft the constitution. It was first major attempt by Indians to draft the constitution. In the Motilal Nehru committee, Subhash Chandra Bose was there, Tej Bahadur Sapru, G.R. Pradhan, S.A. Nair, Shubham. A lot of names are there. Important name is a Muslim is there, that is Ali Imam. So Muslim is present. Subhash Chandra Bose is present. Tej Bahadur Sapru is present. And finally, the report was finalized in August 1928. Recommendations with the Nehru committee were unanimous except in one thing. All the recommendations, all the members which were there, they all agreed, okay, this is the what we want. But one respect was different, that is on the dominion status. While the majority favored the dominion status, but the young people in that committee, Subhash Chandra Bose, will say no more dominion status. We want complete independence. A section of it wanted the complete independence as this basis, and with the majority section giving the letter of section of liberty of action. Means a young section within the Motilal Nehru committee is saying that we want complete independence. Now dominion status has no meaning for us. Now let us look at it, the recommendations of the Nehru report's recommendations. Nehru report first of all confined itself to British India. It did not talk about the princely states. So from prelims perspective, important fact. So it did not talk about the small princely states, but it, for example, let us see in this map. You can see these are the princely states, small princely states that are there. तभी तो इतने सारे princely states थे. These are the princely states. ठीक. So the Nehru report did not consider itself as the confine itself to the British India, as it envisaged the future of the link up of the British India with the princely states on the federal basis. It recommended the dominion status on the lines of the self-governing dominion. So dominion status we are discussing. So it talked about the dominion status on the form of the government desired by the Indians. Tick. Next, the rejection of the separate electorate, and it was in the alignment with the Delhi proposal as well, right? No more joint electorates. Oh, sorry, no more separate electorates. So rejection of the separate electorate, which has been, you can see, which has been the basis of the constitutional reform so far. That is the Lucknow Pact, whether you call it 1919, Morley Minto, Lucknow Pact, then 1919. Then again, you are saying Nehru report, no, this will not be there. With the reservation of the Muslims at the center and the province where they are in minority. Not where they are in majority. Remember, not in those areas where they are in majority, Punjab and Bengal, in proportion to their population. Linguistic provinces, we will take the provinces on the basis on which basis the provinces will be divided, that is linguistic. We have discussed that. It was also agreed in the Nagpur session, 2020, 1920, sorry. The 19 fundamental rights, including the equal right to women. So a lot of fundamental rights were also there in the Nehru report. Responsible government at the center and the provinces. So at the both center and the provinces, responsible government will be created. Then you can read about how the Indian parliament will be there, how the provincial government will be there. Not important. Full protection to the cultural and the religious interests of the Muslim. Complete dissociation of the state from the religion. So upholding the wall-like secularism. So there should be complete dissociation of the state from the religion. So that is very, very important. Then the Muslim and the Hindu communal responses to this Nehru report. So now we have discussed the Nehru report's recommendation. So first, the drafting constitution process began enthusiastically united by the political leaders. The communal difference crept in. The Nehru report got involved in the controversy with respect to the communal representation. Now Hindu Mahasabha will say, कि भाई, first of all, tell me why you need to create a new Muslim majority province. Right? Why you need to give reservations to the seat of the Muslim majority even in Punjab and Bengal? Right? So why are you doing so? And also with respect to the demand of the Muslims, because one of the demand of the Muslim was the Delhi proposal. So they objected to the demand that are coming from the Delhi proposal itself, the Hindu Mahasabha. And they again demanded the unitary structure, a strict unitary structure. Right? Then compromises were being reached. So Hindu Samaj gave up its recommendation based upon the Delhi proposal. So in the course of deliberation of all party conference, the Muslim League dissociated itself and stuck to the demand of reservation of the seat for Muslim, especially in the central legislature in the Muslim majority province. The Motilal Nehru and the leaders drafting the report found themselves in dilemma. कि भाई इनकी माने कि इनकी माने, सीधी सी बात है. Whether we should agree to the Muslim communalist or the Hindu communalist, what should we do? And finally the concessions were made for the Hindu communist, which was there in the report. Joint electorate proposed everywhere, but reservation for Muslim only in the minority provinces. Sindh to be detached from Bombay only after the dominion status has been granted. Okay. Subject to the weightage option given to the Hindu minority in the Sindh. So Sindh ko alag karenge, will separate Sindh, but after the dominion status has been given. And the political structure will be unitary, as residual powers will be with center. So you can say that Nehru report tilted in the favor of the Hindu Mahasabha. And obviously, who won't like it? The Muslim League won't like it. Jinnah, who is still representing a section who is opposing the Simon Commission, remember, Jinnah is still in the section who is a nationalist section, not in the Muhammad Safi section. He will say, okay, fine, but I want these 3 amendments, right? So Nehru report was a memorandum to appeal for new dominant status in the federal setup for government, for the constitution of government, and all these things. Recommendations were not acceptable to Jinnah. He proposed certain amendments in the Nehru report at the all-party conference in the Calcutta in 1928. Right? So Jinnah ने क्या amendments propose किए? He proposed 3 amendments. First, again the same points. Ki 1/3 representation in the central legislature at any cost. In the center, we want 1/3 reservation. Reservation to the Muslims in Bengal and Punjab legislature proportionate to their population till the adult suffrage was established. Then residual powers to the provinces. So federal setup. Residual powers to the provinces. Tick. Now Jinnah 14 points. Let us look at, then he'll say he proposed his amendment, his amendments were not being considered. Then he proposes 14 points. These 14 points will be considered. All the points of Delhi proposal, all the points of the amendments are being raised. And then some common generic points which is there. Very easy to understand, don't have to remember a lot. कुछ चीजों का ध्यान रखना है, that's all. For example, what he will say, that constitution should be federal and the power will be with provinces. Very all objective. Uniform measure of autonomy to the provinces. So they'll talk about that provinces को autonomy, federal with power to the provinces. Then they'll talk about at central legislature, Muslim representation should not be less than 1/3. The same arguments that we discussed. Muslim majority in these areas, Punjab, Bengal, यहाँ पे क्या मिले? Territorial distribution, if anything happens, it should not disturb the Muslim majority in these areas. Delimitation होता है ना? So the delimitation of the boundary, whenever it happens, it should not alter the Muslim majority in these areas. Then they talked about religious freedom, Sindh should be separated, and reforms on this NWFP, Baluchistan, right? You see, no cabinet, either center or the provincial, should be formed without there being a proportion of at least 1/3 Muslim ministers, right? No changes shall be made in the constitution by the central legislature except with the concurrence of the state's contribution to the Indian Federation. So a lot of demands were there which were obviously not being met, and then he goes to the Safi section. Okay? Important ones being, we already discussed residuary power to the provinces. Why it was there? Also the logic we have seen. 1/3 in the central legislature, 1/3 in the cabinet, also in any cabinet at the center or in the province. Whether that province is Hindu majority, it doesn't matter. But 1/3 in those cabinets should be Muslims. Very, very unreasonable demands. Separate electorates, obviously. He'll demand separate electorates now. This one. No bill or resolution in any legislature to be passed if 3/4 of the minority community consider a bill to be against their interest. Important. 3/4 of the minority community, if they veto a bill, then that bill will not be passed. So a lot of provisions which obviously cannot be incorporated into a general constitution. So obviously Nehru report was unsatisfactory. Not only the Muslim League, everyone was unhappy with Nehru report. Muslim League was unhappy, their demands are not met. Hindu Mahasabha is unhappy that why are you conceding so much? The radical people are not happy why you have given the dominion status. So everyone was not happy. So not everyone, not only Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha, Sikh communalists were unhappy. Young sections were unhappy. Nehru and Subhash rejected the Congress modified goal. They say, kahan dominion status pe kahan pahunch gaye? Where are you reaching dominion status again? And they jointly said the Independence of India League later on. So it was in the response to the Nehru report that they have formed this Independence of India League. Okay? So with this, we finish this session. What we have talked about, very quickly, let us revise. Okay? Revise karte hain, and after that we'll summarize. Chalo. So what we discussed in summary कि भाई where we are coming, है ना? We are coming in the political lull is there. We have discussed some satyagrah, Borsad satyagrah, Viacom, very local things are happening. No mass scale movement is happening. Then comes the spark of the Simon Commission. Now Simon Commission comes because it was supposed to come 1919 after 10 years, but it was preponed. Why it was preponed? 2 to 3 reasons. First, 1990 Act has committed a lot of problems. A lot of problems were there in 1990 Act. First thing, and that is why that is being reflected in a lot of commissions which were being there. Then, secondly, the second problem was after the 1919 Act, the government which was there, conservative government was in power, and they thought if they lose the election of the 2019, and after that if they set up another commission, like say XYZ commission, then that commission will be pro India. No, we can't afford that. That is our most prized colony, and the labor hands are very irresponsible. So let us set up a commission now and we will see it. Then they set up a Simon Commission. They set up an all-white commission, conservative, Birkenhead, very poor image of the Indians, that Indians are unworthy and Indians are like this and that. Indians ko shock laga. Indians were very unhappy. What is happening? They will come up with a protest. Not it was a consensus. A lot of people opposed, but overarching, a lot of people were a very pro government also in this thing. है ना? We have discussed that. Then Birkenhead will challenge. Okay, fine. You don't like Simon Commission. Frame your own frame your own scheme of things. Simon Commission's recommendation we have also seen. Then the Nehru report, then Delhi proposal, Nehru report, All India Party Conference, February 1928, then Nehru report, August 1928. Then Jinnah will propose amendment ki bhai change kar do, change kar do. But then his demand will not be met. He will say, okay, these are my 14 points. And this will be the future framework of the Muslims in India. And that will later on create the background to the partition of the India. Okay? So with this, we finish today's session. See you all in the next session. In the next session, we will talk about the what happens after the Nehru report. Okay? Nehru report now gone. Now the context will be laid out for the civil disobedience movement. Okay? So with this, we finish today's session. See you all in the next session. Till then, bye bye. Thank you, everyone.